Ryan, 24 points against Michigan, seemed like 7 points until you guys got some short fields. How do you feel like the defense played as a whole against the Wolverines?
Not good enough to win the game. You know what I mean? Our job is to hold teams to at least one less point, you know what I mean, than we put up. We're -4 in a turnover margin. That goes both ways. You know what I mean? So we gotta get 4 more takeaways, and we haven't done that in big games. Didn't play nearly as clean down the stretch to be able to hang in there. I didn't think we didn't play well Saturday.
You mentioned the takeaways. What can you guys do on defense to maybe generate some more of those? I know Jed talked about it, especially with these Big Ten games not having as many possessions, really needing them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's huge. When you're, like I said, if you're -4 in a turnover margin, we didn't provide any extra possessions, and so that's something that we continue to emphasize. We had a couple opportunities on Saturday to do that, and we didn't. Got to catch the ball when they're thrown to us. Got to be better in our zone drops, and then having an awareness of where the ball is as you're going to enter a tackle, and being violent at the point of contact with the ball carrier. So things that we emphasize always, and we'll continue to emphasize and continue to work on. I can do a better job of being creative and trying to generate more havoc plays, and that's why I'm here. So I gotta get it done.
In the weird situation surrounding Jacob Manu, do you guys sit down and do you have a voice in that? Whether should we use him this week or not because he's on a pitch count supposedly? What's your involvement?
My involvement is to be supportive of whatever the decision is made and adjust accordingly. I know he and Coach Fish and the medical staff, have a plan and have talked about it. It's it's not like they're just flying by the seat of their pants and making impulse decisions. So we'll see where that's at, and like I said, we'll adjust and go from there.
Ryan, your group has been last in the Big Ten in defending tight ends through the last couple of weeks. What do you need to do differently? Is it something where you might just see something different and try some different coverages, or are there other things?
Well, one, we've had like busts in coverage that have allowed the tight end to be wide open, throughout the course of the season. And sometimes, if the tight end is not like the main focal point of whoever we're playing's offense, like the emphasis is on stopping other people. So you look at the Michigan game. Obviously, they had the one, just busted coverage, and guy scored a touchdown. But they're down to their third, fourth tight end, and they got a really good wide receiver. So we're trying to make sure that he didn't catch the ball. He didn't beat us. So I think part of it is the mental errors. Some of it is by design, trying to stop other people. But definitely we got to do a better job of being clued into just your pass coverage, period. I think we got to get better in pass defense as a whole. But yeah, if we're playing a team and they got a tight end that is their main focal point, the game plan will be designed to limit those touches.
I think Tacario gave up like 2 catches for like 5 yards. How close to like his ceiling do you feel like he's playing right now, and what are the next steps for him?
Yeah, he's been playing awesome. Every time he's been in there, he's been doing a great job. He'll only continue to get more aggressive, get more involved. He definitely is an added bonus when he's back there and available. So he'll continue to get better, and I think as he continues to get better as well, our pass defense will get better.
How did you watch him kind of handle being questionable so many weeks, being such a close game time decision, and not being able to be on the field?
I thought he handled it like a professional. Has always been a studious guy. Even when he was out, he was still meeting extra and involved in the game plan. And really has attacked his rehab. I thought the most impressive thing when he came back was like he was still in shape, and and didn't miss a beat there. And so that just goes to show you how much of a professional he is and the way he carries himself.
Ryan, you've got obvious ties to Illinois, having coached there with Brett Bielema. I just wonder what impact did that have on you and your growth as a coach, and what did you learn from your time under Coach Bielema?
Well, I learned a great deal. That was probably my most important stop in my career was going from Missouri to Illinois. He's a great manager of people. He sees the game, in a certain way, and definitely, poured into me and was probably the biggest influence on sort of how I see the game and how I prepare, how I study it, and then how you call it on game day. Got a lot of respect for him and his family. Still got got a lot of friends on that staff. So it's fun to go compete against guys and guys that you're familiar with. It's fun to watch them grow as a program, especially being there at its beginning, and we had some great times there. So it's definitely a place that I hold dear to my history and my family's history. But it'll be fun to compete against them on Saturday.
How did Durfee measure this last weekend after the time off? Was he full bore as far as reps, or did he have to kind of ease in, or how did you do that?
Yeah, he played. I think he played like 30-some snaps, and that was kind of right around where we wanted him from his pitch count. I thought he played physical. I didn't, on Tuesday's practice, you could tell he was a little bit apprehensive. But once we got the pads on for the first time, Wednesday's practice, he was physical, and I thought he was physical on game day as well. We are better when he's in there.
Is it just bad luck on his part, or is he just an over physical player that's going to get hurt because he plays that way?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how to answer that question. I think when you just look at football in its entirety, some guys never get hurt and play physical as heck, and some guys aren't physical and they get hurt. It's just the nature of the game, and there's really no rhyme or reason why injuries happen. And you got to treat each injury like it's its own deal, not like it's lumped together. So, obviously he's had some bad luck, and we'll just chalk it up to that because he's healthy now, and looking forward to watching his growth and seeing him play down the stretch.
Now that he has a couple games under his belt, plus considering the Jacob Manu situation, how do you see Zadris's role continuing to grow over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, he is as athletic and as smart a freshman linebacker I've ever been around. He's everything you want from a size and talent level standpoint. He prepares the right way, always taking mental reps, always in extra meetings, whether it be defensive meetings or special teams. Like the guys, he's a football guy, and he's going to have a great career here. Definitely see his role expanding, as his body allows him to keep going, and his pitch count kind of grows through his rehab process. And I thought when he was in there, he played fast, and the moment wasn't too big for him. So I'm definitely excited about him and his future here.
Is that it for Coach?
Jed talked the other day about how these Big Ten games, there's just not a lot of possessions, not a lot of opportunities with the ball. How does that impact the way that you guys look at what you're trying to do on offense? And does it change anything? Does it just mean taking advantage?
Yeah, I mean, you got to make your possessions count. You know, every play matters, which is always the case, but especially when you know you're only going to get so many opportunities. It's kind of like we talked before, and you know, especially when you get the ball down in scoring positions, like you got to make the most of those. You get the ball on the 19-yard line after a big play, you got to cash that in, you know, especially early in a game like that. That can really change the momentum in a game. But, you know, no doubt, you know, we're just not getting a ton of opportunities right now. You know, the second half, a lot of the game last week was we just didn't execute. You know, a lot of that was on us. We had short possessions because we didn't do our job. You know, we didn't execute at a high level. Turnovers killed us, that kind of thing. And so a lot of that was our own doing last week in the second half. But no doubt, you got to make sure every possession counts and you get the most out of it every time you touch the ball.
Have you had to pull your quarterback aside? He's always a confident guy, but you know, after maybe even the second interception, he just looked crushed on the sideline, and you know, teammates were walking up to him, and he's just had his head down. I just wondered if you've got to, you know, make sure he comes out of this okay.
He's a kid that cares so much, you know, and he's really conscientious kid that really wants to do right, you know, and he's got such a big conscience for the ball. I think that was extremely rare for him to have a second half like he did, and whatever it was in like a matter of 10 plays, you know, it was kind of like bang, bang, bang. And so any player, quarterback or whoever, would be rattled off of that. So definitely there's been some conversations to kind of help him, you know, get his confidence back. And he's a confident kid. You know, I think he took a couple days to kind of learn from what had happened in the game and feel good about where he is right now and looking forward to a great week of practice for sure.
What does it kind of say about Deont that, you know, he's only in his 9th career start and people already expect, you know, him not to make these kind of mistakes? It seemed like an uncharacteristic game. What does it say about his progression that he's already at that point?
I mean, I think that's what he's shown as a player is you don't see the ball in jeopardy very often. And even the plays in that game, you know, I mean, he's going to throw a slant route, you know, and the backer just kind of tracked his eyes and tracked the back and just kind of fell right into it. You know, it's not like he threw it into triple coverage or anything like that. You know, the second one after 2 good throws and we're kind of driving in a 14-7 game, you know, he thinks the tight end's going to hook up and the tight end breaks out and it's just a miscommunication thing. You know, it's not a matter of him not having care for the ball or what he normally does, you know. So, you know, those are things that we obviously are looking at and doing everything we can to correct and make sure they don't happen again. But it wasn't a matter of him not being careful with the ball or being a good decision maker with the ball. So, you know, no doubt there's things that we can get better from that and learn from. But Demont's always going to be a guy that's going to have great care for the ball. Of course, when you look at the final result, it's uncharacteristic of him, you know, to have those turnovers, but it's something that we're looking to move past and just learn from and just continue on with his progression for sure.
You mentioned that second one with Decker. You know, he had one earlier in the game with Denzel, and then against Rutgers, kind of the same thing, these miscommunications. What can you guys do to just kind of clarify that on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, that's a play we've repped, I can't even tell you how many times, hundreds of times, you know, so that's what was so kind of jarring about it, you know, for him and for everyone involved. But it's one of those things that can happen in sports. You know, you're just not on the same page. You thought you saw this, the other guy saw something else, and miscommunication occurred, and that's when mistakes can happen. So just got to do everything we can to make sure those guys get back on the same page, get reps this week, and make sure we go out there and execute on Saturday.
Do you and your offensive coaches, you kind of pushed to the edge here with trying to put it together, meaning you lost 2 tight ends over the weekend, you know, one for the season and one for maybe a short term, but now you've got half your offensive line that's missing, and I don't know if they'll be back. That's a big chunk of your offense. Is it causing you guys to be really, really creative? And
yeah, I mean, you never make excuses, right? And that's kind of who we are, you know, as a staff. And, you know, it's our job to figure out what the best mix of guys and how we can put the best guys out there to go have success every Saturday. It's unfortunate. Injuries are a part of the game. Definitely missing some pieces here and there. And you know, we came into the year with such great depth, you know, and now it's kind of getting whittled away a little bit. But hoping to get some guys healthy here pretty soon, which would be really nice. Hoping to get some guys back, which would help. But no doubt our job as coaches is whoever is healthy and can play the game, it's our job to put those guys in the best chance that we can go move the ball and ultimately score points. So something that we're definitely looking at this week and every week.
Jimmie, you guys haven't been able to put any points on the board in the first quarter of the last 4 games now. Is there anything that you guys as coaching staff feel you can do differently to help this team get off to faster starts?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to start faster. You know, it's something that we talk about. We have a start fast period in practice every week. You know, it's one of those things where it really just comes down to whatever point in time in the game that it happens, whether it's early, it's late, it's in the middle, whatever it is, you got to execute. You know, and if you have breakdowns, you have execution things that happen for whatever reason, you're not going to be successful because of the normal culprits that happen. You know, whether it's a lost yardage play or a penalty or something where you're just not locked in as good as you should. So it's something that we're always going to try to fix and correct, and it's not – you don't just throw your hands up. You know, you try to do everything you can to make sure your players go out there and really know the game plan and go out there and can execute from the very beginning. And we felt good about that. It's not like we haven't felt good about it going into the games, but no doubt looking to start faster this week and keep that moving as the season progresses.
I think you mentioned last week that it felt like teams were really loading the box against Jonah and Adam. You guys were trying to take advantage of that by running Deont on the outside. Michigan seemed like they did a pretty good job containing your running game. What can you guys do, or what were they doing that maybe limited what you were able to do on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, some of it was certainly their personnel, you know, posed some problems for us up front. You know, had some good looks at some runs, and those gaps just closed really quickly up against that front. So, but again, it's something we can always look at of how could we have been a little more clean in our technique. Yes, is there a schematic thing that we could do to maybe take a little better advantage of what they're doing? But it usually comes down to the basic things in football. It could have been a cleaner technique. It could have been, you know, a better double team, you know, with the guard and the tackle, or whatever it might have been on each play that we can go back, and that's why we practice, you know, and that's what we're looking to get better at this week. And like I said, continue on as the season moves on.
What have you been seeing from the 2 freshman tight ends who look like they're going to have to play now, Barron and Austin?
They're talented kids. You know, we've seen that from the very beginning. You know, both those kids can really run and run routes, have a good understanding in the pass game, kind of in the mold of a Decker, so to speak, of good athletes that can catch the ball and do different things that way. And they're good sized kids for young kids. So excited about their opportunity. Of course, again, unfortunate part of the game is injuries. You never want to see that happen, but you can't make an excuse. You can't, you know, season's going to go on, you know, and so guys got to keep progressing and getting ready. And the other thing is we tell our guys is this is a good example of you don't know when it might happen. You don't know when you might get your chance as anybody on the team. You got to be ready. So, and those kids have done a good job throughout the year just continuing to get better. So I'm excited to see what they can do for us.
Cade had really made an impact as a fullback. Who do you see as kind of the replacement there?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. You know, we really didn't have anybody specifically kind of in that role behind him. You know, and he was really kind of a hybrid tight end, you know, which he could do stuff on the line of scrimmage, kind of off in that off position right there or in the backfield. So we'll look at it, but, you know, he definitely had kind of a unique skill set. But, and again, it kind of goes back to your question of it's our job to the guys that can play and that are able to go out there and be healthy and play for us. We got to put them in the best position that we can, whether that means a personnel group, a new personnel group maybe we haven't used yet, whatever it might be. It's our job. It's what we have, and we got to go out there and figure out a way to go move the ball and score points. And that's the bottom line.
You know, all your tight ends are supposed to block, but some of them make it a specialty, like Quentin Moore has been known for that. Of the 2 freshmen, are either one of those guys kind of like lean in that direction as a blocker?
Yeah, I think Q's pretty unique. He's pretty unique in his ability to block with his size and whatnot. But we're always looking to recruit, bring in guys that can do both. You know, and I think these kids are more in that mold of they're really able to do both. You know, we didn't want to bring in maybe like a big receiver that can just be a threat in the passing game. You know, we wanted those guys that we know with our system, Coach Powell and Coach Fish and all the coaches have done a great job of really identifying what we need in recruiting. You know, and those are the kind of guys we look for, is guys that are fit our system, and tight ends that are going to have to block and hold the point and pass protect and run block, and also, of course, be a threat in the passing game. So those kids fit that mold for us.
Coaching Demond, tell me about some players like to be pushed, challenged, others like to be, given high fives. What's Demond like, especially, he hasn't had a lot of games where he's turned the ball over. How are you coaching him up at this point?
I mean, he's one of those kids, like athletes, like he's so hard on himself. You really don't have to say a lot to really kind of let him know what happened. He understands. He understands it wasn't good enough. He made a comment that he never has had a game like that from high school to now in his young college career. Like that was a complete new experience for him, and certainly took it very hard. He took it very hard after the game and did a lot of reflection and looking at himself. And so he's not a kid that you kind of got to dig in from that side of things, from that mental side. And there's some things that obviously we can clean up as coaches to kind of help him. Hey, here's why this happened. Here's what you can do better. Here's what we got to do moving forward if we get in that position again. But in terms of the reads and things like that. But from an overall standpoint, like you don't have to say much to a kid like that. He knows it wasn't good enough, and he's really excited to get back out there and practice this week and go play again this weekend.
Jed mentioned after the game he felt like he didn't put Demond in a position to succeed. Is there anything that you wish you could have changed from maybe preparation or anything you wish you could have added to what you did last week before the Michigan game?
Not too much, really. I mean, just from a standpoint of really the two plays that those happened on, those are base plays that we've run hundreds of times throughout practice and games and whatever it might be. Like, those were just base plays that we run all the time, and it just was a matter of not executing when it mattered, and really that's kind of what it always goes back to. It goes back to, technique and maybe, on the first one where he tries to squeeze that ball into the slant, hey, you got to see that Will Backer, and if it's a maybe, and he's starting to track your eyes out there, get to the second part of your progression and keep moving forward. So it's really more that. And those plays weren't plays where he was being reckless with the ball. They were really just unfortunate timing and a little bit of miscommunication, maybe a little cleaner with his eyes in his reads, but it really goes back to just those day one things that we would always tell him. I don't think it was anything that Demond didn't do in his preparation leading into last week. I think he worked as hard as he ever does. It just so happened that had a rough stretch of plays there in that second half, and two plays right there that he certainly wants back, and we'll work to correct. But that's really all that was.
What do you match up with Illinois' defense? Where does your strength lie?
Yeah, I mean, Illinois' defense is strong. They're a strong defensive unit. We got to play really well. Of course, believe in our guys and believe what we have, and if we go out and execute, I believe we'll have a lot of success. But it comes down to executing. We got to execute. Everybody's got to be tight on the details and their technique, because this is a unit that's very talented, very good, really at all three levels. D-line, linebackers in the secondary, they can pose some problems. So, we got to be on our A game. We got to have a great week of practice. It always comes down to that, but we're looking forward to doing that.
When you played, were you recruited by Illinois?
I was a little bit, yeah, I was. Yeah, I ended up going to Missouri. I wanted to go to Illinois, and I got passed up for another guy. So there's some added motivation there for me. But no, it's obviously my home state, and but yeah, they did recruit me. I went to summer camps there all the time, and spent a lot of time on that campus.
All right, good.
All right, thank you guys. All right.
Zach, how did it feel to be back on the field after a couple weeks away?
Felt good. I don't feel too rusty. I've been pretty locked in on game plans and stuff still. So I would just say it felt a little different playing in the brace, getting used to that, but it didn't feel too different. It felt pretty good.
Dick, what just kind of, from your perspective, happened on that the second interception?
It was just a miscommunication.
What did you see? What read were you going off of?
I don't know, just me and Dee just didn't see the same thing. So just a little miscommunication, but we got it cleaned up.
Obviously, some injuries around you. How do you feel like your role is going to grow and expand over the next couple of weeks, and what are you looking to improve on the most as the season goes on?
Yeah, it's super unfortunate for Q and Cade. They're really good, hardworking guys. Praying for them, but I need to step up, and the young guys need to step up, and they've all been working really hard in the room, and the young guys are really good players, so I think they're ready to play. But just need to develop as a all-around tight end.
How would you describe Barron and Austin's skill sets?
Really, really good. I think for how young they are, they're really developed, and they just show really good stuff in practice, and they're really hard workers, so they're ready.
Zach, how would you describe your sense of urgency after having to go through so many injuries and having to sit and watch, and just now that you're finally back out there, how has that changed over your time playing ball?
I've always been like trying to be a hard-working guy and driven and stuff, but you say the sense of urgency has definitely picked up. My time we have 5 games left, 6 weeks of the season with the bye week, so the urgency's definitely picked up. That was actually a talking point in our position room this week is we got to be super urgent. Like everything we want is still in our control, but we have to go out there and do it. It's been frustrating with a lot of injuries and having to sit out a year like when I get here, and the road I took to get here was kind of a long one. But I haven't traded for the world. Like it's been still a blessing. But I'm definitely just excited I'm back out there and I'm healthy enough to play, and feel pretty good. So that's how I'd answer that.
Is it hard to get injured and then have to, get over it during the season? I mean, it's not like you have a whole couple of months to feel great again. Is it hard? I think Ryan Walters said you were a little apprehensive when you first got out on last week on Tuesday or something, and then you got into the flow.
It's definitely difficult. It's not something that's fun. A lot of rehab. It's just a lot more hours that go into the day. But you control what you can control, and it's part of the game. So that just comes with it. I'm just happy that I'm able to play. So yeah.
Decker, without Quentin, does your role change at all in terms of what certain packages you're in for, certain plays, or is it all the same for you, or is there any difference just schematically for you? Because it's going to be hard, there wasn't a lot of 2 tight end sets after he and Cade went down.
Yeah, we'll probably be in a lot more 11 personnel, obviously, but the game plan doesn't really change. We just next guy up mentality and get the young guys ready.
Zach, Coach Walter said he's been emphasizing turnovers a lot. It's been kind of a topic for a couple of weeks. What does that mean from a player side when coaches say they're emphasizing turnovers? How do you interpret that? What does that kind of mean?
Well, we know what it means. We got to attack the ball more, and when we get the ball thrown to us, we got to catch it. We got to do a better job of, he said he's taking some of the blame. He thinks he hasn't put us in position to make enough splash, like havoc plays, but that's also on us too. Even if we don't have the best call for it, we can still get off blocks and make those kind of plays. So we just got to attack the ball. We know it's a point of emphasis. We just got to be better at it.
Good. All set. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Damon, Jimmie said you took some time this week to kind of reflect on everything. I guess what was that process like for you, and how do you feel like, or where do you feel like you are, I guess, after that performance?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the drawing board and, trying to figure ways to get better and continue to just strive to be great.
When you go back and look at the film of a game like that, what are some of the biggest things that you can learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just situational football and, just keeping a steady mind throughout the game and continuing to, just mature as the season goes on and learn from mistakes.
Jimmie said, you've never really had a game like this dating back all the way through high school. In the moment, how did it feel, and how did the kind of aftermath of it feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely different. Obviously, I've never had like a game like that, and being able to just watch it back and just reflect and being able to build off of it was super important.
Landon Hatchett after the game said, he has full confidence in you, wants to make sure that the team was behind you. I'm sure the message was the same in the locker room, but how does that feel, coming off a rough performance, I guess?
It feels good. I mean, those are my guys, and I'm just glad to know that they got my back.
You look like you took it kind of hard after it kind of sunk in while you're sitting on the bench, and I saw a bunch of your teammates coming by to try and make sure you were feeling okay. But it looked like you were stunned there for a while. Would that be accurate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just frustrated, obviously, and, I was just trying to figure out ways to, find out what happened. But.
You've had a couple of these kind of miscommunications with receivers, the one with Decker, and then early in the game with Denzel, last week with Denzel against Rutgers. What can you guys, on both sides, do to maybe clean up some of that miscommunication?
Yeah, continue to just get extra reps after practice and continue to try to work every look possible in certain play calls and just get on the same page at the end of the day.
What did you see on that first interception on the slant?
Yeah, I mean, I just got to progress through. I kind of pre-snapped it, and in that scenario, you just got to kind of progress.
Kind of looking at the other side of things, it looked like it was a nice day for Raiden Vinesbright. How do you feel that your connection has grown with him throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously grown a lot since the first game, and being able to get him the ball more, and just watch him grow as a player.
You had a career rushing game against Rutgers. Michigan, obviously a different personnel group, but seemed like they kind of were able to keep you in the pocket. What were you seeing in the running game, specifically against Michigan?
Not necessarily anything. I would say just, in the zone reads, just staying strong to my reads, just continuing to get better there and continuing to find out the right times to pull the ball and hand it off.
I know injuries are part of the game, but you've lost half your offensive line, at least temporarily, and now you lost 2 tight ends this last weekend. Has it been kind of a shock to, see so many guys go down all of a sudden here at midseason?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want all those guys to be healthy and finish throughout the whole season, but we also know that, football is a physical game, and we understand it's a next man up mentality, so we just go into every week like that, and I have full confidence in whoever's playing.
Anything else? All right, thank you.